This is an explanation video on how I made my most recent animation, the Fitness Freaks video. So to start with, I have this scene here, but the funny thing is, even though this is the first scene, this is actually the last thing I animated because it was the least important part. Because if for some reason the later scenes took way too long, then I would be fine just not having this first part. I have all of these models from previous animations, and this model I have not used before in an animation was from a school project, and I did some of these models in a way where I can actually change the resolution of them. But the thing with these models is if I try doing shape keys, like it all looks weird and like freaky on the inside when I deform that stuff. So I did not have this figured out all the way, but it worked well enough for this thing. I animated this the same as I always would, where I would go make a couple keyframes for each pose. Like maybe I had this here and then this or something. Then I would go in between that and here's a retiming keyframe where I just made a keyframe and moved it around so I can actually very slightly control how fast that moves. I'll try making everything as smooth as possible and have as many details as I could put in there without taking forever. One really annoying thing I had to do for this, because I was actually talking for once, is the mouth animation, and unfortunately it takes forever to put facial rigs on things, so I just did a couple of shape keys. What I did specifically is this terrible thing. I had a keyframe for each of my shape keys for every frame I want it moved, like every syllable, and then I would control individual values and copy and paste them so I would get something that kind of works. It's kind of simple, but it was probably the most efficient way of doing this. There are also obviously shape keys for the eyes, where I can make them larger or smaller or do the blinking. For most of this background, I just did Blender kit materials and edited them so it looked a little bit better for the animation. This was really hard to light and it only looks good through the camera. There's like 12 lights here and it was really hard to make it not look dark or too bright. Here are the seals. So these models I made specifically for the animation. These also have multiple subdivision levels. This was actually like one of the most simple parts because the scene was really small. These are set up in a way where I can just move the top part of the body and stretch them a little bit, and then I can also flip them on their belly and bounce around if I need them to. Something to note is that they're all obviously the same seal, but I have a different color for each of them. So I was able to change the textures without actually drawing anything in. I could make some really freaky alien seals if I wanted. Going into this page shows something I had to do when a rendering error happened and I forgot to show this arm. It's just something where in the outliner I had it disabled and I had to go in, re-render this, and get it composited back in. So I have this big transparent block here which hides everything and just shows this arm. This arm I didn't take from anything. I just sculpted specifically an arm because I did not want to make a whole model for this other character, so I just made him off screen the whole time and I thought that was really funny. I think this is kind of obvious, but this ghost guy that's made out of smoke is just the same model as this one, but I have a smoke simulation on it. This was the most annoying part, and this is another thing where I didn't want to figure out a new character to make. For some reason, the smoke simulation crashed a ton of times, even when I had it at the lowest settings. It's really weird. I really should have figured out how to do this better, because for each different shot, I had a different simulation that I had to start, because between cuts, like this character moves all the way over there, and then if I start this simulation where it's putting out smoke right when the camera cuts, then you're gonna see this outline and it's gonna not look smooth. So maybe I would do like separate files for that kind of thing, or separate scenes in the future, but I'm not sure. And then for this scene, I just had each object get parented to the hand at different points and then hid them. when they went off screen. This is kind of manually animated, but it didn't take that long. It was just like 5 different points that this was blending between. And then some of these things are just models from BlenderKit, like this was, and this table, but this video player and this projector I'd had to do myself, partially because they were not very hard to do, and I just felt like doing some of the things myself. Here's some of the problems I was talking about when I was rendering stuff. For some reason on this simulation there's just a cut here, and I'm not sure if I maybe had 2 simulations that I accidentally rendered part of. Some of these things are so distracting, so I tried taking a frame like here and blending it and having a transition between, and this is masked out so it's a bit less distracting. It's still kind of distracting, but you don't see that random cut anymore. I was also trying to blend out this random square that appeared. I think it was just a glitch. I had some post effects, so I needed this flame and the candle. I used like a free version of an asset pack. I didn't have anything to track this off of, so I just manually moved it and it looks good enough. I don't know how I'm gonna do all this stuff next time I do an animation, because I don't like going through and fixing stuff like this random part of the clothes that clip through. And I probably don't have to fix this. I'm gonna like be focused on it forever and see it every time I watch this if I don't fix it. So one last thing is that I did color correct each of these, and this looks terrible right now because I edited it for HDR, and that was super annoying because YouTube takes forever to upload that stuff, so I had to wait a week to actually have it uploaded. For some reason, DaVinci Resolve has no idea how to do color correction for Blender stuff and export it in HDR, so I had to use this. But it sucked because all of my audio was recorded in DaVinci Resolve because it has the better audio editor, so I just have all my audio in here and then half of my sound effects because I needed to add some more. So that is very not organized, but I know I will not do this next time and actually plan it out a little bit better. But those are the only little fun facts I have about the animation. Please give me ideas on what animation I need to be doing next.